Welcome back to the Evolve podcast. I'm Rianon.
And I'm your better host, Brendon.
All right, we'll leave it at that. But for now, pretty much what this podcast is all about is self-development, health and fitness, and our journey starting as brand new business owners.
Let's go. Make sure that you share this around because I'm telling you right now, this is the best podcast you've ever seen.
Enjoy, guys. Ciao.
Welcome to the podcast. Had to do it.
How do you know how do you know which one's which?
The colours.
Is that what the colours are for?
Yeah, as you can tell, we're still very fresh to this equipment. So anyway, as I said, yeah, we're doing a bit of a recap of the year that was, or the 3 months that was. It's been definitely a bit of a personal development journey for ourselves, learning a lot about, how other people view their personal development, their own goals, how they set their fitness and health goals as well. What have your thoughts been of the past 3 months, like doing this? Because it's been like such a ride.
It has been a ride. So we've posted our first episode. I can see here. Oh, let me see. Let me pull it all the way back. We started in April. Yes, I knew it. So it was the 18th of April, 2024 was the first podcast episode that we posted. But we only started recording in
November
2023. And we both said to each other, hey, let's just record 20 episodes first, because we heard some stat. I can't remember where we heard this stat from, but it was someone that said that 99% of podcasts fail in the first 20 episodes. So within that first 20, they get excited. They're like, oh my God, doing a podcast, whatever.
Buy the equipment and
buy the equipment.
set everything up.
They maybe get to 20. It's pretty rare for them to make it to 20, but then they quit after that. So we made the 21st without posting. And then once we got to that 20, we were like, okay, let's see, do we actually enjoy this? Do we actually see something coming from this? As in, can we actually stick to it for a long period of time where we don't see a reward? Because we don't get a reward from doing the podcast. There's no...
The reward we get is from talking to people and learning about their journeys.
Exactly.
There's no monetary value tied to it.
There's no monetary thing to it. And everyone kind of knows that from a podcast, unless you get sponsors. Right now, DynamicRecov is sponsoring the Evolve podcast.
Essentially.
But if people know, we're the ones that run DynamicRecov, so we're sponsoring our own podcast. And now a word from our sponsor, DynamicRecov. As you can see, there's a bottle there in the background.
I think the craziest part of this 3 months is that we've been able to do two things at once. And we've been able to juggle running the business and also running this podcast.
Well, we've been doing it for a year, the podcast.
Yeah,
but when you say 3 months, you mean getting guests on for 3 months.
Yeah.
But we started in September. September was when we had our first guest come on.
Yeah.
So it's been, 5 months now? September, October, November, December, 4 months.
4 months.
Okay. Yeah, had to count with my fingers crossed. So 4 months we've been getting guests onto our podcast. We've had 12 so far. Knowing or keeping in mind we only post once a week on Fridays. So with that, I feel like I've gone into every single podcast with a bit of imposter syndrome and a bit of fear going into it. Every single one. Even though most of them are people that I know or have known or know of. A few of those guests I didn't really personally know. You did. Some of the guests I personally knew and you didn't. So we were able to, come together before those podcasts and you were like, hey, this is a little bit of a rundown of this person. This is what I know of them. And it gave me that confidence going in because I was like, oh, Ray knows them. He's going to be able to bounce communication with them. It's going to be a lot more smooth. Coming into 2025, there's going to be a few guests that we both don't know that well. Or we know of them, like little bits and pieces.
Through socials and stuff like that.
Yeah, but nothing too in-depth, right? And that gives me this little, fear thing as well.
The butterflies in the tummy.
Yeah, the butterflies in the tummy. I'm like, shit, going to that podcast is going to be a bit different to the last one.
Yeah.
But I just see every single podcast or every single episode that we do as a little bit of a stepping stone or a little level up. As Daniel said in the podcast, all you're doing in life is just leveling up every part of your life, and this is just one aspect of our life in general that we do, which is the podcast. We have our business, DynamicRecov. I feel like we are doing a lot of things. People tell you to hone in. There was a quote from Adrian or Brewfit, we like to call him. He said something about, let me see if I can find that quote. Where was it? Don't do too much too soon. And it's true, because when you overload yourself, you can burn out, as you can see over there with that book. But I feel like what we're doing is something that not many people do, where they run a business and run a podcast at the same time. I feel like we're managing it pretty well. There are days that it's pretty stressful, and there's heaps of time crunches. The whole day feels like it was 1 minute, but we're doing what we love, and that's what allows me to keep on going and keep doing what I'm doing.
I think effectively, if you don't find something that you love doing, what are you doing? You always got to find that drive that makes you continuously wake up in the morning, want to do it again. Oh, you've got this on your schedule, cool. I'm ready for it. Mentally preparing yourself every single day, like we have. You know what? I go into every day with that butterfly feeling in my stomach, and I think that's the ticker that I need to just make me go and go and go. Every single one of our guests that we've had on, and I don't know how many people would sit here and listen to two random PTs that run a business and run a podcast would be like, oh, this is so engaging. But, we've just done what we've loved doing. So if people love it, sweet. If they don't, that's fine. But we love what we do. And as I was saying before about the guests, every guest has come into this podcast setting with that butterfly feeling in their stomach. But that butterfly feeling that they've had in their stomach, and something that we spoke about with Daniel before we actually started recording was, and Pierre, like we've gone through a lot of people that have had that butterfly feeling. I think it's just that fear of like doing something that's outside your comfort zone. And pushing yourself outside that comfort zone makes you either push yourself outside another comfort zone that you never thought you'd push yourself to. Like, Darren, for instance, running a business, but now he's listening to himself about how he talks about running a business. Then we did a photo shoot with him and we spoke to him about, how did you feel after the podcast? And he's like, you know what? I didn't think I would say the things that I said on that podcast, but it was good to get a different aspect from even myself, just learning about what I would say and how I would answer questions. And now it's just changed that perspective of how I'm going to think now moving forward, because I've listened to myself. And we do this all the time. We edit these podcasts and we go, shouldn't have said that, or I didn't actually think that I would think like that. And then it really, especially speaking to different people, you're like, that's a different take. I'm going to take that on board. Every single person has given us that little stepping stone, as you mentioned, just not only from a mental aspect of running a business, because we've never run a business before, but just from being open, being an open book and being like, okay, I see where you're coming from. That's the point of a podcast.
100%. And we focus on those three main themes of self-development, business, and health and fitness, obviously. And all of our guests tie into those three avenues or three areas. Obviously, some in more areas than others. So we've got some guests that are primarily focused on business, right? And Daniel was probably someone that fits really into that little section right there. Then we got other big guests that came on that were really focused on more the self-development stuff. And then others that were very health and fitness focused, right? And I like seeing all those types of people, because essentially that's us in a nutshell. We focus on those three areas of our life: self-development, business, health and fitness.
And also having a laugh.
Yeah, and having a laugh in between.
I think towards the back end of this whole podcast journey, we've learned to become more of ourselves and less of a robot. And I think the podcast sneak peek with Tasha, there will be parts where I edit, but that podcast really impacted me. They all have impacted me, but that one coming from my cousin really impacted me to the point where I was like, why can't I just be myself? I talk a lot more fluently just being myself. I don't pause. I don't get mind blanks. Like there's episodes where I've had mind blanks and didn't know what to say. But it's just over time now we've created this routine and this habit of just being able to be ourselves and be natural. And this is as natural. This is natural us speaking, but at the same time, we want to actually really talk about our journey, going through this whole podcast journey with these 12 guests and what we've learned along the way.
Which is us being ourselves.
Exactly right.
The whole thing about having mind blanks and not knowing what to say, I feel like comes from a place of
Structure.
Exactly.
You've
so
been
when
drilling that into my head.
I have.
But it's
And
good.
It's important. And this is why I have these things written down because, you know, how are you going to remember what you said in those 12 episodes?
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
we've watched every episode like 2 to 3 times each.
Yeah.
You've edited all of them. But are you going to remember big quotes that happened in every single episode?
No.
Are you going to remember big moments or what we talked about with Daniel or what we talked about with Adrian, which happened in September, which is a whole 4 months ago?
Yeah,
You know,
like when you brought up the notes,
there's
I was like,
million different things that have happened
Yeah.
in between that period of time. So having notes up allows you to expand, remember what happened in that episode, then you can actually freeball and talk after
it
it.
gives you another avenue to speak about stuff as well. Because like even like Daniel said some crazy quotes, Lucas said some quotes, and I think Lucas's one really hit me hard because it was from my little brother. And it didn't hit me at first. When I was in the podcast, I didn't feel like I was in a podcast or doing one. I was just listening to my brother talk. But he said,
Work while everyone's asleep.
work while everyone's asleep and
That's my
enjoy the
favourite one.
journey, not the destination. And I think
He came up with some doozies, didn't he?
he did. But I think like that's the beauty of what we're doing is like my little brother, big spin out. Didn't even expect to grab quotes like that from him.
I get that on the barber chair sometimes.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
I'm sitting there. He's cutting my hair. He's like, work takes place outside the comfort zone. I'm like, I swear I've heard that from your older brother.
yeah. You go through like different motivational quotes from each brother.
Yeah.
It's very.
But
it's-
what are you guys, just motivation gurus or
no
something?
idea, bro. No idea.
Well, 2 PTs and a barber, you know.
Two
you
PTs
gotta-
and a barber. I think that comes down to the communication that we've all developed in our careers. Lucas being a barber, talking to people, learning from his conversation with each person, and just taking on his own little nugget and giving it to someone.
Yeah.
He's the nugget I got. He's the nugget of knowledge. Julian's been a personal trainer for nearly 3-4 years now. I've been a personal trainer for 5. You know, everywhere. I think when you talk to a lot of people, you get a lot of insight into the world that
Well,
they
you gain
live.
skills.
Exactly
It's
right.
like sales. It's a thing that you learn. The more hours you put into practicing a certain skill or certain thing, you're going to get better at it. So if you're someone that socializes with a lot of different types of people, you're going to become better at socializing with different types of people. It's just how life works. And Daniel said in his podcast again, I'm going to reference Daniel Collins' episode again. He said that if you want one area of your life to improve, all you have to do is focus on it to level it up. It's like a video game. And we talk about life being a video game all the time.
Life
and
is a game, people.
I feel like a lot of people understand that though, because if you think about it, if you want to focus on getting shredded, whatever, just step into the gym more.
Yeah.
It's actually as
Yeah.
simple as that. If you want to
Improve
focus
your
on
business.
improve your business, start putting more time into focusing just on your business. If you want to focus on your relationships, then start spending more time focusing on those relationships, and then those areas of your life will improve at that certain time,
Yeah.
that time frame, and then you can reshift your focus after you feel like you've achieved a certain level that you're happy with.
I think that aspect of like life is a game, like not taking it literally and like playing a video game, but I think growing up there was, for us anyway, there was someone in our life that played video games and spent all day until they got to the next level. And I think us having that understanding of the people around us that have played, it's just like, okay, if they focused a whole day on getting to the next level, imagine if we did that with our business or with our podcast. So now that
Or with a family
or
member.
with the family member or with the girlfriend or whatever it is, now it's like
or
that
boyfriend.
or boyfriend or boyfriend. But it's like
Yeah, gender neutral, man. Come on.
that understanding of, okay, if you
Actually,
actually
you can say no gender as well. There's what? You got to
You're
be
right,
open.
you're right.
You
Yes,
got to be
yes.
open to everything.
completely
All cultures.
all
as well.
cultures. You made me lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, having
Resilience.
having oh shit, having you're Resilience. Now this is the funny side coming out. But having the understanding of what a game is and leveling up and wanting to go to the next level, because if you just stay
It's a
at that,
game.
if you just stay at the, shut up. If you just stay at the level that you're on,
Yeah.
you're just going through the same play, same map, same course, same
Or
road,
like Nuketown every
whatever.
single day.
It could be Nuketown. I never played COD, so I wouldn't really know. But
But you know it's from COD.
I know it's from COD. Yeah, understand like a very basic understanding. That next level that you need to take is what's going to put you in a different position in your life.
Yeah. I feel like, as we said before, the whole thing about, imposter syndrome. I feel like when, for example, in this podcast is a perfect example of what we've actually done, because every stage of this podcast, we've done something a little bit different, right? So we started off recording 20 episodes with cameras, with our little road mics and everything, but we had no intention of posting at all. We were just like, let's make 20 episodes first. That was stage one, because there was no intention to post or anything like that. Stage two was just us recording podcasts and posting them, but it was actually done to post, if that makes sense. That was stage two. Stage three, we were like, okay, let's get equipment, let's get guests on, and we started doing, guests with people and whatever. And we started off just our close friends, which was easy because it's just our mates in a podcast. Then the next level was us introducing guests that are in our industry but are not really our close friends. So we started getting colleagues, we started getting people that we know of and getting them on the podcast. That was another stage. Now we've gone to the stage of doing a 4-way podcast, which just came out last week. And coming into 2025, we've got some guests coming on that we've barely spoken to, or we don't even know, or we just know through Instagram or socials.
They have an interesting career and a story to tell, so why not put them on a podcast like this?
So you can say that there was different steps and stages throughout our whole podcast, and that was just us putting ourselves more outside of our comfort zone. Because if we just stayed to doing podcasts just ourselves, to a camera, to a microphone, we would have got pretty good at that. And who knows what would have happened. But we were a fan of putting ourselves out of the comfort zone every single time and leveling up a little bit each time, slowly and slowly.
I think as you just mentioned that, I was like reflecting on everything that we've done, and it still hits you every time. Like November last year, we started recording. From where we were there to where we are now, the levels that we've like gone up have been mental. From little road mics and a backdrop to now as you can see, if you are watching it, we've renovated a whole, mini office. Brendon's got, brought his fish tank in. We've got a shelf. My cousin's given me some plants. We've got our water bottles. We've got our books. Levels. It doesn't hit you because you just blink and we're here.
Yeah.
But then
time flies when you're doing a lot of things.
100%. But then an episode like this, us reflecting on what we've done, our one-on-ones that we used to do, I think it was a couple months, we were just like asking each other questions. We were like, oh, so what is it that you do, and introduce yourself. But now like our confidence level has changed. The way we communicate has changed. The way we perceive things is now completely different to what we were doing before. So we've gone from just questioning everything that we thought would be interesting, interesting information to now, how about we just like take a step back, reflect on everything that we've done and how far we've actually gotten, because the first couple episodes were nuts. Yeah. If you go back and watch our first ever podcast, just for a laugh, just for like 20 minutes, go watch it.
Me and me doing this for like 20 minutes.
We're in the office with a backdrop that our mate designed and drew, and we're sitting there with road mics. We have no idea what we're talking about. There's no level of fluid conversation, and it's just structure. One talking, the other talking. One talking, the other talking. And it just, that happened. And over the 20 episodes, you see some sort of development. The wall gets more full. Our confidence changes. we'd start bringing in fake microphones just to show that we're gonna
Improving.
we're improving. And then there was a period in the middle of the year that shifted us completely, and it made us go, okay, if we actually want to do this, let's follow through with our word and commit to it big time.
September, guests, 76 stories high in the heart of Melbourne. We got these, we got our mates, and we did podcasts.
And
Boom.
I think the biggest part was, and the biggest thing that I took away from that was that we obviously developed a Melbourne team down there while we were there at the time for DynamicRecov. We developed that team, and then we had the weekend to sort of unwind and really reflect.
But we made podcasts instead.
But instead of unwinding and going for a drink to the pub or doing
We
stuff
did
like
that as
that,
well.
which we did, we used the middle of our day to actually sit there and be like, you know what, let's do a podcast. Let's push ourselves outside our comfort zone. What do? Smashed 3 episodes, or actually we did 4. Me and you did one that we're going to open on our 30th birthday, which was just something that we thought would be mad and funny to talk about. We're in a very different period of our life compared to a year prior to that.
Yeah.
Then we had Vinny. Then we had Adrian. Then we had Jono. It was just a snowball effect, and we were like, oh my God, like this is awesome. And that little kick was what started it. And it was just us pushing ourselves outside that comfort zone.
That's all it was.
It was all it was. And mind you, Brendon was the one pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
And you're like, oh no, let's just relax.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
he's happy that we did it.
Now,
Because look where we are.
I'm sitting here talking to a podcast and talking to a mic, and and it's
You know what they say? You don't rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of your systems. Daniel Collins 2024, guys.
I'll tag him in that one. That was a really good podcast, because that podcast made us both like really appreciative for what we've done up until the point that
what
we're
do you
in.
think you gained from that podcast?
The biggest thing I gained from that podcast is that we're on the right path, and there's a lot more that we need to learn. Like we're on the right track, and that podcast really opened my eye. Talking to my old boss, never thought in a million years I'd be talking to my old boss. But then it wasn't like I was talking to my old boss. It was like I was talking to another guest, but obviously a little bit of a mentor as well, because he really motivated.
He did mentor you.
He mentored me in a sense.
Well, he's the one that got you onto this path in a way, because
Exactly
he's the one
right.
that started getting you to read books. He's the one that decided to help you. He taught you a little bit of sales and marketing, and without him, you probably wouldn't be doing something like this.
No, not at all.
And you got to thank people like that from your past. You got him on the podcast, and I feel like he can give a lot of people an insight. Now that was just one of the quotes that we remember from his episode. But one of my favorite parts of the episode was towards the end. You can only quit on your best day.
I think
That was a doozy.
that one stuck
was a doozy.
because we were like, that was
when
the
I heard
question.
that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was the
Okay.
question I asked. I was like, what would you give, like, what advice would you give to someone wanting to start their entrepreneurial journey, or just us as like starting business owners? And when he said you can only quit on your best days, you even questioned it. You were like, hang on, I don't understand that. How can you quit on your best day? Got him.
Yeah.
And I hooked you in from that
He
moment.
knew I was going to ask that.
Oh.
He knew that one of us was going to ask
One
a
of
question
us.
like that. And I was one that had the biggest balls to say it. And he was like, got him.
I kind of understood it because he said something similar to me when he was mentoring me, but it still wigged me out, because I was like, you can only quit on your best day. And you still, even to this day, even if you hear it like on this podcast, you still think about it. You're like, how can I quit on my best day?
You have to take a double take, right? If you just hear it and you're alone, you just hear it in a podcast, like it's happened a lot of times when I'm listening to like Chris Williamson's podcast, and someone says something, sometimes I'll pause the episode and just think, I'm like, okay. But when you're in a podcast, you can't just sit there, stop and be like, just give me 5 minutes. I just need to like pause and reflect on that. You have to actually respond straight away.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there like, I'm trying to digest what he just said, but I can't because I've got to reply to it.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, whoa, easy.
It's crazy on a podcast, like, because you're learning as well as asking questions. Like, we come in with loaded questions, but then there's always something that we need a question just to sort of get the answer that we need.
100%.
And I feel like that's a really important personal skill to have, is to learn to ask questions. There's a quote in one of the books that we used to read, act like the. Oh no, I think Jono said this. Act like the dumbest person in the room, and you'll become the smartest.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that when he was with us, we took along with every sort of situation
he said
we
it in
put
his
on.
podcast,
He
but
did.
we aren't able to post it
No,
because he
no.
hasn't given us any legal ability to yet.
He just doesn't
I
want
tried
to
getting
post.
to sign up a paper, but
He just doesn't
I
want to
couldn't
post
do
it. Look, he's a really wise guy, but that was something that really, really stuck with me. Like, far out. If you hear that, what are you gonna do? If you heard that, what would you do?
be the dumbest person in the room.
I first thought, I was like, what do you mean being the dumbest person in the room? Like, why would you need to be? But the whole quote meaning,
But the real quote is more be the quietest person.
Be
in the room.
the quietest
Not the dumbest, be the quietest.
be the
Because
quietest.
if you're loud, you're not actually learning or you're not digesting anything that happens in the room.
Yeah.
Because if you're loud, you're the one that's talking, you're the one that's projecting everything and saying your piece, whatever it is. You're not actually listening or learning from anyone else.
Yeah.
As if you're quiet, reserved, and you're just observing and watching, you're going to learn a lot more about those people that are around you.
Do you think that comes down to like learning how to control your ego as well?
I guess so in a way, but it's more like just being observant in your room, like around your friends and stuff like that. If you're too loud, you're not going to really listen to other people's opinions, right? And it's not really an ego thing. It's just more, reflecting. And in a way, it's not be quiet and don't talk. It's more don't be obnoxiously loud where you're not able to listen and hear people out, right? And John is really good at it because you never see him as someone that doesn't talk at all, but you can tell that he's also observant in every situation, which is good. It's actually a good skill.
Loud can be defined in many ways, though. Like, what would your definition of from that quote, loud, be to you?
Brendon De Silva.
When we first started becoming friends, there was a quote that I wrote up for you, and I wrote on your phone, and you haven't changed it since.
I haven't.
What is it? What was it? Ego? Something to do with ego. Don't let your ego override your humility.
That's the one.
And
I read it every single day. Actually.
Well, yeah, it's it's on your phone.
3 years ago. 3 years ago, you read that on my phone.
3 years ago to that day, I was a very philosophical person.
Oh, yeah. Very philosophical, this guy. We were shopping and then he just took my phone. He was like,
No, we were in the gym in the morning at 4:30 in the morning.
oh, yes, it was. It was.
And I was like, because Brendon is a very, in my definition, a loud person. He likes to be loud.
Center of attention.
And it was like, okay, I know you from the short moment that we had been working out together and friends. You can be very loud, but you're super, super smart. So I was like, how can I indirectly tell him, like, look, just be the quietest person in the room instead of being loud? And I just grabbed his phone and I was like, don't let your ego override your humility. And yeah, as I said, he has never changed that quote from his phone. And
I
it's
don't
just
think it's
sat
worked
there.
yet, but it's in there. It's in there. They say that it's in the
It's
unconscious mind.
Subconscious.
Subconscious.
Subconscious, yeah.
That's the one.
Unconscious.
Yeah, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
So.
Now, throughout this journey that we've been on, we've maintained running a business in the background of this podcast too.
Has been hard.
DynamicRecov. It has been hard, yes. But I think through us pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone, which is what seems to be the main theme here today, there's become a lot of leadership. And we've actually taken
The rain?
we've taken the torch.
Oh.
Yeah, we've taken the torch.
Where?
And we've learned to become better leaders. You've taught me how to become a better leader for not only myself, but for the people that I surround myself with, as well as the business, as well as the podcast.
If you can't lead yourself, how are you expected to lead other people?
100%.
And I always say, if you want to be a better leader, you need to be someone that actually follows through with their word within themselves. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to achieve this thing, go out and achieve that thing.
Yeah.
Because only you are telling yourself that. So for example, a big thing is people that set those new year, new me goals. You can tell who which people are seen as good leaders are the ones that set a goal and they actually put the steps in to actually achieve that goal, right? And PTs always say this, we're PTs, have a goal, create actionable steps, and all you have to do is start doing those actionable steps every day to achieve your goal, yada, yada, yada. If you're able to do that, then I would say you have control over yourself. If you have control over yourself, then you are going to be better equipped with leading people. And someone like Daniel, you can already tell when you speak to him. He reads books, he's consistent, he runs his business, he has protocols in his life that he follows and he sticks with. And you can see that with how he presents himself. I would see him as a great leader.
And that's 14 years of being in the industry.
Doing the thing.
And doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was another big theme of this year. You went to Chris Williamson's, what was it? He had a talk. He had like a seminar with James Smith. James Smith was there too. But he
just introduced
him.
It was like you introducing me coming on this talk or something.
Yeah.
Like the podcast. Every single podcast, Rianon introduces them.
Yes.
Whenever I introduce one, they're pretty wig out. So,
But the one thing that I constantly heard you and Vinny and Adrian all talk about was learning to do the thing, or just committing to doing the thing.
doing the thing, yeah.
And what was the biggest takeaway that you got from that "do the thing" quote?
Just do the thing. That's a deal.
I know. It was a rhetorical question.
Chris Williamson basically said, do the thing
Yeah.
10,000 times in his talk. And basically it just means,
Do it.
yeah.
That's
In a nutshell, do the thing.
Just do it.
If you have something in your mind that you
Yeah.
want to do the thing.
Yeah.
Because thinking about the thing is not doing the thing. So people tend to do this thing where they're thinking about doing the thing. They're like, oh, I really want to start a podcast, or I really want to do a podcast, or I really want to start doing something, whatever it is. He reckons, just do the thing. Because you'll only know what's going to happen if you actually do it. So let's say you're constantly thinking about doing a podcast or starting a podcast. You never do it. You're just constantly thinking about it for years. You're like, oh, I really want to start a podcast, really want to start one. You'll only know if you actually like it, if you actually do it. So just do it, so then it's out of your mind. Because then if you do it and you don't like it, it's done. You won't actually be sitting there worrying about the podcast. A good example that everyone will be able to relate to is dating. You know, I'm always going to pull this as a good example, but he said it in the talk as well. When you see a girl that you like, if you don't go up to her and tell her how you feel, and I'm saying a female example, could be a guy, whatever it is, pick your poison. When you find someone attractive or you feel like you actually really want to go up to them, just do the thing. Go actually do it. Because if you don't and you're just thinking about the thing, when you go home, you're going to be thinking about, oh, I should have approached that person. I should have done it. And you're going to be beating yourself up over that feeling of not doing the thing.
Yeah.
So he reckons, just do the thing.
I think a lot of people, when they hear "do the thing," they essentially go into panic mode or fear that there will be mistakes made. But there was an episode, I think it was the Vinny episode that we spoke about, and he was saying mistakes are fun. They're like the stepping stone to improvement.
Yeah.
And that was like,
It's about leveling up.
it's about leveling up, which is what we talked about before. But mistakes are there to be made. You do the thing like we have. We've lost episodes. We have missed calls with people like by accident. But they're pure mistakes. They're nothing that you can actually pin yourself to the ground to and say, oh my God, I'm the worst person in the world. But those are the mistakes that you need to make that next stepping stone. If you don't harness that energy, harness that and put that fuel in the fire, you're never going to create the fire.
100%. They do say that, and this is a Layla Hermosi quote, fear is a mile wide. Fear is a
good one
mile
you said.
wide and an inch deep.
Say that again.
Fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And what I take away from that is basically you think in your head that this thing that you're about to do is so scary. It's going to take a lot of confidence for you to actually go out and actually do it.
It's a mile wide.
It's a mile wide.
I'm not going to do it.
Like I'm looking at it, like, it's scary.
Yeah.
Like look how deep that water is. Then you step into it and you realize, oh, it's not as bad as I thought. Because it looks scary, but once you actually do it, you realize, oh, it's not actually that bad. And everyone knows this as, when you're feeling like you want to approach that girl or you want to start a podcast.
It's that hesitation
You're
moment.
like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You do it and you're like,
Yeah.
we're just talking to another person.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just recording an episode, recording my chat with cameras.
There's stages to overcoming fear. And I think that first stage is thinking it. The second stage is committing your body to it. The third stage is passing that fear, the hesitation period, and then actually doing it. So there's like a little stage process. As you said, like structure, there's always a structure to everything.
Like a step-by-step process.
Step-by-step process. And if something as little as going to talk to a person, your brain automatically goes into that stage process. Oh, do I do it? Oh, I'm not, but this is all in your head. Do
It's
I
a
do it?
survival instinct.
Survival of the fittest. Survival instinct, not survival of the fittest.
Because your brain always wants to keep you safe and comfortable, you know. It never wants to get out of the comfort zone. So you need to actually force yourself out of the comfort zone. And something that we learned from Andrew Michael's episode is it's better to just act before you think.
We posted that video and Brendon was like, oh, wow, that is wise.
That is wise.
In some
Act before you think, because that's me. That's me in a nutshell.
I think that understanding of acting before you think is good in some aspects of life.
I wouldn't say it's good in all aspects.
Not in
but
all
I
aspects,
tend to use
but
it in all
some.
aspects because I tend to not switch it off sometimes.
For instance, with business, acting before you think would be awesome because you're just like, I want to run a business. But then you have to think before you act because there's all
but
these
being
little...
thinking
forward.
too much is not good as well.
Yes. Agreed.
Acting too fast without thinking is not good as well.
Agreed.
So you have to find the balance, between the two.
That's what it comes down to because you can have that mentality of, yeah, I'll just do it. Sweet. And then worry about the
So
repercussions
out of the
after.
two of us, you're the thinker, I'm the actor, right?
Yeah.
I just do it and you're like, hey, let's step back and actually think about how this works.
It never used to be like that though, because we had the mediator, Jono, in the mix. So one of us had to be the mediator between the two of us now.
Yeah.
So it was more like not a responsibility, but it was more like, okay, one of us has to do it, one of us has to be that mediator, and the other one has to be the doer. One does, one thinks.
Yeah.
And that's what we really harness in each of these podcasts and each of our everyday life. Running this business has
Everything
been...
we do is kind of like that.
is exactly
It's
like
been
that.
like that from the start though.
So Brendon, yeah. But Brendon just goes, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, let's think
Let's
about
make
how we
this
can do
look
it.
pretty
Yeah.
and cute. And
So like we've got we may as well say it that we've got a challenge starting in the
in
new
the new
year.
year, 27th of January, it's going to start.
It starts. The closing date is the 20th. So make sure you register. It's a 66-day challenge. We thought we'd do something different outside the comfort zone of
We've
the
done one
norm.
for free before.
We did the free one, and then
Got no engagement.
after we spoke to Lucas about him committing to the 75 days, we did a little bit of research and it came back that it takes about 66 days to create a habit, roughly. So why not put a 66-day challenge together to where someone can create a habit or walk away with one habit that they never thought they could start their year off with.
And it really ties in with all of our pillars. Self-development, because you're building habits in your life. Self-development, right? And then health and fitness, which is, it's a fitness challenge, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of ties into all of those aspects. Then the fact that we're running it, business, So I guess all three things kind of tie together in that sense.
And I was speaking about it with my mum this morning about the challenge and all those aspects. And I tried to just speak on a different level. I was like, you know what, Mum, what is it that you want to achieve in the new year? Because I can ask this question to anyone. I can ask it to these people on the podcast. What is it that you actually really want to achieve in 2025? What are goals? 4 kilos. Okay, that's good. Think past that. What's a habit that you want to create? I want to go to the gym more. Okay, how are you going to do that? How are you going to go to the gym more? Oh, it's hard because I work. Okay, how can we find the time in your day to make this a habit? Because it's not about going to the gym. It's not about eating the right foods, which the little bits and pieces there is. But the main goal and the main objective for you is to create this habit in your everyday life so it becomes second nature.
So she's not someone that lost 4 kilos. She's someone that got consistent with going to the gym 3 days a week.
Mm.
Someone that got consistent with drinking 3 liters of water
Mhm.
every single day. And those are habits that happen over time. And something that I learned from your brother was discipline will take you so much further than motivation ever will.
Mm.
Julian 2024. All right, so it's true because I remember coming over to your house when he was preparing for his bodybuilding comp, and I just saw him there with 400 grams of egg whites, just sitting there munching away, and I'm like, bro, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't do that. But he has that much discipline with himself. He has this goal centered in his mind. He's like, look, I want to step on stage. I've got to really push myself outside of my comfort zone to get there. And he's the one that actually said the quote,
Growth takes place.
growth takes place outside of the comfort zone. That's the one. And that was like a big quote when I heard that. And I feel like it really ties into the whole discipline and motivation thing.
And the fact he repeated it twice to the camera and was like, growth takes place outside the comfort zone.
Oh, that was my favorite part of it. So
And they went like
that
kind of viral.
was a big highlight.
They went kind of viral on TikTok as well because he was just like staring at the camera going,
He had
hey,
his take glasses on as well.
what colour is your Bugatti? But
Both your brothers had pretty good episodes, to be honest.
yeah,
Well, we're going to get Julian back on
in March.
2025. Yeah.
In March, we're going to get him back on. I think that'll be a good... I look back at all the stuff that we've done over the past 6 months to a year, and it really makes me go, okay, we're not only leveling ourselves up, we're helping people level themselves up just by having them on a podcast and talking, right? So Jules is now 6 months into his job. So from where he was talking on the podcast before, it's going to be very, very different to where he is right now, gaining these new clients, learning how to be, clean,
A business owner,
learning to keep the gym clean because it's his baby as well as Adrian's. He performs his exercises or his programs or his training sessions in there. So if you put the effort into something that you want to actually eventually one day grow or be or do the thing. And he's a prime example of doing the thing. He committed to that body comp. He did the thing. That was the discipline that he knew he needed to level himself up to the next stage. He left his old job, started a whole new business venture that he never thought he'd take.
And that's an aspect of a good leader,
Yep.
because when I look at Julian, I see someone that you give them a task, they will follow through with it and achieve it to its end point.
May not be like next week or the week after, but it will get done.
Well, he set himself the target to step on stage
100%.
and he did everything he could to get there.
And that was the
to
discipline.
the point of having 400 grams of egg whites, which
Yeah.
I know if anyone watches the podcast is not an ideal situation to be in. If you're sitting there with 400 grams of egg whites, you're not going to be too happy. But he was able to just go through that because he knew he wants to step on stage and he wants to look good. And he's transferring that discipline that he had there into his business, which is why I feel like he's going to be pretty successful in what he does.
There was another quote that Lucas said was, do it for yourself and not for the numbers. It could be numbers on the scales, could be numbers on, in your bank account, but, do it for yourself at the end of the day. We harp a lot about mental health and focusing on yourself and making yourself the number one priority. I think there was a period, we'll give the people an example, there was a period where we didn't focus on ourselves at all. The business was stressful, or we were stressed with the business, we weren't training, we weren't doing this, we weren't doing that. And we're personal trainers. Why wouldn't it be easy for us? People have that expectation of it being easy for us. We'd never been in that position before, but we had to do the thing. And doing the thing was getting back into a routine, creating those habits again, developing a schedule, which is something that we've continuously been developing. Is just, awareness for ourselves and how we're feeling. Focusing on a active, healthy, balanced lifestyle and being connected to the people that are around us, like our friends and our family. And they've been
100%.
yeah, go on. Were you
Yeah,
going to say something?
that's what it is.
Yeah. So they were the main pillars that we continue to strive for after readjusting our goals and what we wanted to achieve with this podcast, with this business, with the
100%.
guests. So I'm proud of us. I think we've done a good job.
And basically with that quote, with what Lucas said, I tend to, as soon as I heard that, it made me really think about this whole thing that I teach a lot of my clients, right? If you have a goal to run a marathon, right, it's 42 Ks. You can look at the number of the 42 Ks, but the way I would break it down is think about what you would have to be if you were someone that could run 42 Ks. You'd have to be a runner. You would be labeled as a runner. You should be known by the people around you that you are a runner. Because if you are running 42 Ks, you'd be running pretty often, right? You'd have to run at least 3 to 4 times a week if you want to be able to run 42 kilometers. I don't know the numbers on it. Never run 42 Ks before, but I would say you would have to be on average running 3 to 4 times a week, you know, upwards of 10 Ks or whatever. If you're running that much, people are going to see you as a runner,
100%.
right? So I translate that into everything, right? If you want to lose 10 kilos, then you're just someone that has a habit of eating healthy food, of training consistently and being consistent with your diet and your training and your exercise, right? And maybe gets 10,000 steps a day, right? And for someone that has a goal of, you know, lifting 100, bench pressing 100 kilos, you know, you're in the gym pretty often. So you're just seen as a gym guy. And I just translated that into everything because it's not about the numbers. It's not about those achievements or those goals that you're aiming towards. It's about the habits that you accumulate to get there. Because you are just your goals or the things you achieve are basically just an accumulation of the habits that you're doing.
Yeah, it's a depiction of your mentality. You know, you committing to that 42 Ks or doing something like that and doing it, you did that for yourself and you didn't do it for the numbers. You didn't do it for the followers. You didn't do it for the money. You didn't do it for the fame. You didn't do it for any of that.
You didn't do it for the 42 Ks. You did it because you're a runner. That's
exactly
that's
right.
how it is.
And you ticked off that box at the end of the day. I think that's another big thing that I want to bring into the new year, especially with my clients now that they're a little bit more situated.
What, running 42 Ks?
Not running 42 Ks, but
Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And if friends are interested, share it around.
again, going back onto one of our pillars, which is business, getting an understanding from someone that's kind of in our like similar shoes was really, really cool to see. And we did it with
because he's a new business owner.
He's a new business owner too, and roughly around the same period of time that he,
like last 2 years or so.
Yeah, last 2 years has been developing everything in the background and then launched it all. Adrian has done that too. We always talk about surrounding.
All of our guests
all of
are
our
kind
guests.
of people that are just started their entrepreneurial journey. And the four-way podcast that we did last week, I actually labelled it entrepreneurial path. That's one.
Entrepreneurial path.
Entrepreneurial path. And in that podcast, we talked about the fact that, you know, what were we doing 3 months ago or when we recorded the first episode to now. And for us, there's obviously been a lot more guests. Our team expanded to Melbourne. We actually expanded our nutrition team and our Sydney team as well in DynamicRecov. And we started getting guests and upgraded equipment for the podcast. Adrian went from losing his job as a PT to opening up a gym. And Vinny has really elevated himself in the trading space and learnt a lot of lessons. And it's taken him to this point where he knows that he'll be sweet.
He's learnt a lot about himself.
He's learnt a lot about himself. And so, one of my favourite quotes from Vinny himself, even when skies are grey, the sun still shines.
That was a good one. And as you guys can probably tell, we're quoting a lot from like a lot of old episodes.
Well, that one was just last week, but
that was just last week. But I think he said it. Oh no, he would have said it to us in conversation.
That's
anyway.
the thing, yeah. He wants to get a
tattoo of it, yeah. But like as I just said, like we're going through a lot of these quotes, and we were doing a lot of deliberating and watching the videos and grabbing like very impactful quotes along each of our podcasts with our guests, and we were looking back on each quote, and we were just like looking now like. Pierre Luc was one, a bit of a funny one to break it up. If you aim for abs but get kebabs, you're still happy. You know, like there's just different like.
I mean, it's true. It's the same thing as, you know, what do they say? Shoot for the moon.
Shoot for the stars, aim for the moon.
That's the one. Yeah.
It's
It's
similar.
basically the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
And Lucas is
Be happy with the fact that you might not achieve the biggest thing, but you'll still achieve something.
yeah, like Lucas said, do the most while everyone's doing the
Doing the
least. Abby, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
Abby's podcast was actually really good. I really liked Abby's because in that podcast we really saw a different perspective of
A personal
PTs,
trainer, yeah.
and then we in that podcast we really got another perspective of PTs. Obviously, she's in the same industry as us.
Yeah.
You worked with her a lot at Totem Health and did a lot of work in the background with group training. I feel like she inspired us to potentially join a High Rocks next year,
Yeah.
which will be something that will be exciting. We'll probably see her there, who
Mm.
knows. But, you know, getting someone that's in our industry on the podcast was actually pretty fun.
Mm.
And it was something that I had a bit of a fear going into that one because that was the first time I was seeing someone on the podcast that I didn't know myself.
Yeah, I think that
I
was
met
one of the
her
first.
there.
Yeah,
I actually met her
right. Yeah, yeah.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
We probably talked for like 10 minutes before we actually started recording, so I didn't really get to know her that well beforehand. And he gave me a little bit of a rundown. She sent us a big blurb about herself, which actually helped a lot as well. And, you know, I went into it, fears a mile wide, inch deep. I had this big fear. I was like, oh, I'm going to wig out. I don't know what I'm going to say, whatever. I had a bit of questions I had written down, whatever.
Yeah.
But once I stepped into that podcast, I was like, this is just another chat.
Yeah.
But I have cameras in front of me.
Mm.
And then I had these questions and I was like, okay, let me just learn about her and what she does. And,
Yep.
you know, that was a big quote that we got from it, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
AJ was another one that I didn't really know of, but you knew more of.
Even though he worked for you.
Even though he worked. Yeah, I know, but like you've obviously got to know them a little bit more and you knew him prior to him coming on board.
Yeah.
So I only knew that he was a trainer for us. I spoke to him a couple times, but not obviously in depth.
Yeah,
And that
someone that obviously looks after him and everything.
Yeah. That was the same concept. Like that fear factor really settled in. I knew what he had done just from drips and drabs, similar to the blurb. But yeah, it was
That was another one where it was more PT related as well, like more health and fitness related.
Yeah, so he said a quote: "If you stop, you don't know what you're missing out on." And I don't think if we did something like I don't think if we didn't do something like this, we would look back on these quotes and actually realize how much we've actually input these quotes into our everyday life, into our businesses, into our podcasts.
As I say, subconscious mind,
Mhm.
right? And, you know, that was another thing that we've learned from Jono himself. We've actually referenced him a lot in these podcasts, and he
Yeah.
knows because he actually watches them.
Yeah.
But he always said to me, and this is something that has always stuck, sometimes, and this comes from audiobooks or podcasts, I was talking to him once and I was saying that I don't really gain anything from driving in my car and listening to an audiobook or a podcast because I would finish that podcast or that, you know, audiobook and I won't be able to actually tell you much about what I learned or what happened in that podcast. Maybe drips and drabs, but nothing too much. And he said to me that you might not be able to relay everything that you learned or everything that happened in that podcast, but it's in your subconscious mind. So it's there. You're just not able to, you know, come up with the information straight off the bat because it's not in your frontal lobe. And I was like, wow, that actually makes so much sense.
100%.
Because frontal lobe would be something that you're physically seeing then and there. Whereas you're not able to read or look at the video or whatever. You're only learning through listening, which is a part that you'll only be able to take into your subconscious mind in that moment.
I think there's sometimes when I do read an audiobook or listen to an audiobook, there's times where I'm like, oh, that was good. I wish I could write it down. But then I forget to go back 10 seconds just to re-listen to it.
It's still in your subconscious
but it's
mind.
it's still there. Like,
and you might randomly bring it up at one point in the future and be like,
well,
where did I even get that from?
yeah, like
And you'll realize maybe one day that was from that book.
Atomic Habits I listened to on the audiobook.
Oh, you never read that?
I never read it, so I only listened to it in the audiobook. And the one thing that always stuck to me was the environments one. don't change your environments. Oh, sorry. Keep your environments separate. Don't bring your laptop to your bed to do work, because you won't be as efficient as if you were to do it at a desk.
No, that's a big thing though, and that's what we talk about that all the time.
Yeah,
about
habits.
cues and environment, because
And triggers.
this is a big thing that I've always taken throughout my whole life, and I feel like it's become more prominent when we did the reading of Atomic Habits and everything. When I'm in my room, when I sit on my bed, or when I sleep, like when I just lie down on my bed, it doesn't take me long to fall asleep, because I associate my bed with sleep.
Yeah.
Right? If sometimes I pull out a book or pull out my laptop if I'm on my bed, I'll end up getting sleepy and tired and end up falling asleep straight away, because it's not something that I do. It's not a common practice of mine. And when I'm in the office or where I usually work, I usually open up my laptop and it's very automatic for me to get into work mode, because my brain has associated this area as this is where you work. It's associated this area as this is where you sleep. And I feel like everyone can set up their whole house or whole area in those certain departments, reserve certain sections for certain tasks, so that when you go there, you only do that thing. And if you do that, then when you go there, then your brain's going to be wired to do it. So set up reading corners, set up your bed as just sleep only, set up a section where you might want to doom scroll. I don't know, pick your thing, whatever. But if you reserve those areas for those things, I'd choose a doom scrolling area as the most uncomfortable spot in the house. So then you probably won't do it for long.
Yeah, and you're like you're wired in the sense that if I have to go doom scroll, I'm going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and so
then you'll probably
it
do it
steers
less.
you away. Yeah. Well, it's like if we were to do this podcast on the bed, I think I'd fall asleep.
Yeah, just say
Welcome back to the Evolve podcast. But
we're back.
This opportunity that we've given ourselves to really, really reflect and hone back on everything that we've accomplished has made me realize, wow, we've actually done the thing. We've done the thing that we've set our minds, we've set our minds to, and now we're sitting here and we're going, we've learned this, and they're all little level ups that we've been mentioning along the way that I don't think we've given ourselves enough credit for. We do these things every day and it just becomes, as you said, automatic.
Because it's the habits that we're doing.
Because it's the habits that we've created and just put on a rinse and repeat cycle. But I don't think we've actually taken ourselves outside the dishwasher and gone, far out, that's how clean the dishes are. Because we've put that rinse and recycle on. We've got a fish tank in our office and a shelf with books. And like we're sitting here naturally talking.
We actually built this office, right?
We built this office as well.
With some help, but
we did it. It's not perfect.
We did the thing.
We did the thing though. We've got a nice black door, a nice shelf, a tree. Like it's just everything that we've actually been manifesting. And this is another thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I don't know how you think about it. But I feel like in our heads, we said, we're going to do this. We followed through with it and we made it happen. Didn't matter what was in our way, we made it happen. We knew that we wanted this sacred space of ours to be an office or to be a podcast studio in the corner and our desks and working stuff on the other side. What are your thoughts on manifesting? And do you believe that what we did was manifesting, or we just worked towards a goal that we set? It's a stumper.
It's a stumper, but I feel like it's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's
so
a mixture.
The way I think, or I've always seen manifesting as, is
a dream.
A dream, and it happens, and you didn't do anything to get it. Yeah. Whereas having a goal and working towards it, that's physically you actually doing it.
That's very true, because when you manifest, that's actually very true. Because when you manifest, it's like, I will be rich, or I will be happier, I will be this in the past tense, in the future tense.
Yeah,
that's manifesting, but you're not putting any effort in it to get there. You're just it just happens.
You can still work towards those things, but manifesting is more dreaming and then it happens sort of thing. Whereas a goal and putting those actionable steps towards it, you're actually doing a process or following a
Alright.
process to get there.
There you go. So we still learn stuff every day.
Mm.
And we do this podcast like
There you go.
once a week.
Let's get the word manifesting and actually get the definition of it.
Sometimes the hard facts are what you need to hear to actually make a change. Good old Vinny.
The act of using methods such as visualization and affirmation to help you imagine.
That's the word.
To help you imagine achieving something in the belief that doing so will make it more likely to happen.
So it's a belief.
It's a belief
It's
that
working towards something that you believe
that's
in.
not working towards something. It's just believing that it will happen.
What did it say? It said
Manifesting is
methods, using methods such as visualization.
Visualization and
Sorry.
affirmation.
Yep.
Manifesting is based on the idea that you can think your dreams into reality.
Okay, that's fair. That's
so you're
fair.
just thinking something
Yeah,
into
yeah.
reality, where doing it is you actually creating that reality into yourself.
Well, if you want it, you're going to make time for it.
Exactly. And what did AJ say in the podcast? If you stop, you don't know what you're missing out on.
We just said 3 quotes in the span of like a minute. One was Vinny, one was Adrian, and one was AJ.
Well, we've actually had 12 guests.
Yeah.
That's 12 episodes or 12 1-hour plus episodes of heaps of quotes, heaps of content that we actually gained from it. I feel like I learned a lot from every single one. And a big thing that I learned, I guess this is more fitness related, was that whole thing about exercise really helping me with chemotherapy. Thanks, AJ. And it's something that I've actually said to all of my clients now. I'm just like, did you know that exercise actually helps with chemotherapy?
Yeah.
Helps with the recovery? Like, oh, no way.
Mm.
I just had, a relative or whatever with cancer and they were just in bed all day. I should have got them to do squats. I'm like, yep.
Our main objective is to get people moving and stop thinking that you're limited. I think that's the main reason as to why we put this business together and this Evolve podcast together, was to tell people, like, you're not limited to what you think. You're
100%.
limited. You're only limited to what you know. And you can learn so much just by one conversation, one phone call, or even just a letter being sent in the mail. Like,
100%.
and that's the beauty of what we're able to do in this podcast, is project our voices, what we're learning every day, to people as random as you watching it now, to just learn something different.
100%.
Push yourself.
And we're just taking them through our journey.
Growth takes place outside the comfort zone, and it has for us. And we sit here now, somewhat proud. There was moments where we're like, we haven't really achieved what we want to achieve, but I think we, doing something like this, have to sit back and go,
You
we
reflect on
reflect.
what happened. Like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you rise to the level of your systems.
Boom! Another one, another doozy. All right.
Well, on that note,
On that
I feel
note,
like that's been a good podcast, a really good recap.
yeah,
Obviously, I feel like I want to start doing these not more often, but
I reckon every 3 months, just to reflect.
every quarter.
Every
We're
quarter.
not going to do this every quarter, guys.
Yeah.
So
No, it's not going to be like penciled in or anything like that. It'll just be like, oh, it's around the 3 month mark. We'll do it now.
just time the quarter.
Yeah. But I
Shit,
think
the review's not out yet. What are
Yeah.
they doing?
I think
Recording in progress.
yeah. I think 2025 is going to bring a lot for a lot of people, especially us, and the effort level that we've put into everything that we want to
You'll
achieve.
see a few more trees,
You'll see
a few more fish, a few
little
more
things.
books.
I think 2025 will be a year that everyone will remember, because it's like a quarter of a century. I'm 25, you're 25. It's a quarter of a century. It's a big milestone, but 2025 is the year that we're rolling into now. I think,
I'm pretty proud of the fact that I'm 25 in 2025.
yeah, our parents did well.
Yeah, they did.
Thanks for popping us out what you did, Mum.
99 babies.
We copped it well. But I think, yeah, as I said, if you've listened up until this point, thank you very much for following us and following our journey from where we were to where we are now. 2025 will bring
and
a
where
lot of
we are going to be.
and where we are going to be. 2025 is going to be a very prosperous year for yourself and whoever you end up bringing onto our journey as well as yours. And I think we should end it there, because that's like a good way to cap everything off.
Beautiful. Nice
Beautiful.
and doozy. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Evolve Podcast.
Brendon and I have loved having you throughout this whole podcast. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And if friends are interested, share it around.
Yeah, make sure you share and tag us on your Instagram posts, and I'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Little boogie to finish.